And there came a time known as the third millennium, a time when the people of the earth were ravaged by disease, pestilence, and poisons, a time when the horsemen of the apocalypse ran the multinational corporations, a time when America's citizens were waking up to a future of no money and no jobs, a time when a special man came forward, a man that your American taskmasters did not want you to see or hear, a man whom they took prisoner and hid away, a man whose name is Yahweh ben Yahweh. For telling people the truth, Yahweh ben Yahweh was taken prisoner by the minions of darkness. For giving people hope, Yahweh ben Yahweh was led away to Golgotha. This is the continuing story of the past and of the future, about good and about evil, about your life and what it will become. A story that tells why the so-called black man of America had to suffer for over 400 years. A story of what will happen to the so-called black man if he returns to the laws, statutes, judgments, and commandments of God, Yahweh. Olam shall Yahweh. The universe of Yahweh. Brought to you by the nation of Yahweh. Working for you and your future.
Good or evil, life or death. This is your choice in this, the year 6004, the year of judgment. Shalom and welcome to the universe of Yahweh. My name is Josiah Israel, and I am your host. For over 7 years now, we have been discussing some of the things the Bible said would occur in the day of judgment. We warned you that the weather was going to change, and that the powerful forces of nature were going to bring terrible destruction upon America and the world, and that it was going to get worse and worse and worse. And it has. We alerted you that violence in the public schools was going to increase, and it has. We showed you in the scriptures that forewarned of wickedness in high places, and we are witnessing today gross misconduct and serious crimes being committed by some of our highest elected officials. What lies ahead for America and the world is nothing less than the proliferation of deadly diseases and plagues as foretold in the Bible. But there is hope. The Bible tells us that at the end, the Messiah would be revealed, and at that time, he would save the righteous from this impending destruction. That one, the Messiah, is Yahweh ben Yahweh. So we invite you to join us in the universe of Yahweh, featuring the commandments of Yahweh and the Messiah revealed. First, the commandments of Yahweh.
For 6,000 years, we have been suffering at the hands of rulers who transgress the laws of Yahweh and teach all people throughout the earth to transgress the laws of Yahweh. In order to have peace, love, and harmony upon the earth, we must return to keeping the commandments, judgments, laws, and statutes of Yahweh. All of us have been taught that the commandments, judgments, laws, and statutes in the Old Testament Bible do not count today. In this series, we will show you that the commandments, judgments, laws, and statutes in the Old Testament Bible do count, and that if we govern our lives according to these commandments, judgments, laws, and statutes of God Yahweh, then we will have peace and goodwill upon the earth forever. We invite you to study along with us. However, in order to do so, you must have the following tools: a King James Version of the Bible, several dictionaries, the New Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, a set of encyclopedias, Hebrew and Greek lexicons, a thesaurus, and a synonym finder.
Shalom, my name is Sarah Abigail Yisrael. We are discussing the commandments of Yahweh. Many people have been led to believe that the first commandments ever given to man were given to Moses. The truth of the matter is, the first two commandments ever given to man were in fact given to Adam in the Garden of Eden, which were to dress it and to keep it. In our previous shows, we discussed the word dress. Now, we are still discussing the word keep. In Hebrew, the word keep is shamar, and one of its meanings is to be on the lookout for or to be expectant of the future birth of a child. We have been revealing some of the things the Bible said would happen to this one child, the Messiah, Yahweh ben Yahweh, that would clearly identify him as the one promised to come, to deliver or restore us, the lost sheep of the house of Israel, the so-called black man of America, who are descendants of slaves to the Promised Land. Let us do a brief recap of some of the things we talked about last week. We decoded the word night as described in Matthew chapter 27, verse 64, and told you that by definition it means a time of gloom. From an etymological point of view, the word gloom means yellow, and we learned that yellow, by definition, means featuring scandalous items or ordinary news sensationally distorted. In addition, the word gloom is also described as lying in wait. When we went to the book A Dictionary of American Idioms, we learned that the phrase lie in wait means to watch from hiding in order to attack someone. We then decided to delve a little further into this definition by looking up the words watch, from, and attack. From these compelling facts, we concluded that the reason the chief priests and Pharisees got a court order restricting Yahweh ben Yahweh from having any direct or indirect communication or contact with any of his disciples while in his private home, serving his parole for the remainder of his 18-year prison sentence was for fear. They feared that during the time when these scandalous, sensationally distorted news items are being fed to the news media about Yahweh ben Yahweh, his disciples who have accepted his teachings and have the ability to help spread his message will assemble a powerful coalition that will gain support and win the sympathy of the people and subsequently come off the winner or victor despite fighting against all odds and opposing forces. Now today, we will continue our discussion of the word night in Matthew chapter 27, verse 64, as we begin to answer the question, who is the person that the chief priests and Pharisees are keeping under surveillance, whom they have moved out of contact with Yahweh ben Yahweh and his disciples for the purpose of speaking out publicly against him? The answer is hidden in the word gloom, which comes from the word night. Follow us carefully, because to get to the root of what this all means, we have to take you through a series of definitions. So on the authority of the Cassell Concise Dictionary, copyright 1998, on page 627, gloom is derived from a Middle English word called glaumen. Our second definition of glaumen is cognate with glum. COGN is an abbreviation for cognate. Let us decode this definition. On page 280, the word cognate is defined as of the same nature. In accordance with the Abbreviations Dictionary, 9th edition, copyright 1995, on page 217, the abbreviation COGN is also defined as cognomen. Referenced in Chambers' Concise Dictionary and Thesaurus, copyright 2001, on page 239, the word cognomen by definition means a nickname, and the word with means compared to. Therefore, from these definitions, we can deduce that the word gloom is describing a time when the person, while under the surveillance of the chief priests and Pharisees, whom they have moved out of contact with Yahweh ben Yahweh and his disciples for the purpose of speaking out publicly against him, will be of the same nature as a nickname compared to glum, Glum. What is glum? In accordance with Webster's New World College Dictionary, 4th edition, copyright 1999, on page 605, glum is an adjective, and it means sullen. First, let us investigate the significance of the adjective. In accordance with the book entitled Writing and Grammar Communication in Action, copyright 2001, on page 744, an adjective is defined as a word that modifies a noun by telling what kind. The word modify means the same as qualify, and in Webster's New World College Dictionary on page 1173, qualify means to describe by giving the characteristics of. On page 390, describe means to tell or write about, to give a detailed account of. Based upon these definitions, the significance of the adjective glum is that it describes what kind of nature or characteristics this person, whom the chief priests and Pharisees presently have under surveillance, will openly demonstrate when he publicly tells or writes detailed accounts about some alleged actions of Yahweh ben Yahweh. The adjective describes this nature or character as a nickname compared to glum, which means sullen. Now let us decode the next word in the definition of glum, sullen. Documented in Webster's New World College Dictionary on page 1433, the word sullen is derived from the Middle English word solein, spelled S-O-L-E-I-N, meaning solitary. Referenced in Webster's Encyclopedic Unabridged Dictionary of the English Language, copyright 1989, on page 1355, solitary is defined as a person who lives in solitude from religious motives. The word solitude, as referenced in the Synonym Finder by J.I. Rodell, copyright 1978, on page 1134, means the same as withdrawal. Thus, from these facts we can gather that the word glum describes a time when the character of this person, whom the chief priests and Pharisees have under surveillance and are keeping away from Yahweh ben Yahweh and his followers, will be in a state of withdrawal from religious motives. As a withdrawal from religious motives, in order to learn what this means, we must go again to the books of understanding, the dictionaries. In the Synonym Finder by J.I. Rodell, on page 1348, the first word, withdrawal, is synonymous to renunciation. Stated in Webster's New World College Dictionary on page 1214, renunciation is described as the act of renouncing, a giving up voluntarily, often at a sacrifice of a title. On the same page, renounce, the root word of renouncing, means to give up a belief, usually by a formal public statement, to give up a way of living, to refuse further association with. And now, to gain an even better understanding, let us go to the Encarta World English Dictionary, copyright 1999, on page 1516, which describes the second word, religious, as believing in and showing devotion for a deity. Belief in religion, the teaching of religion, following the practices of a religion. On page 476 of this same source, deity is defined as God. And on page 1180, the third word, motive, means the reason for doing something or behaving in a particular way. Therefore, we can reasonably assert from these facts that night describes the time when the true nature or character of the person whom the chief priests and Pharisees have under surveillance and away from Yahweh ben Yahweh and his followers will be in a state of withdrawal, meaning that he will first publicly renounce his faith and belief in the religious teachings and practices of the nation of Yahweh. In order to live in withdrawal from religious motives, he will secondly formally and publicly acknowledge that he is no longer willing to show devotion to Yahweh ben Yahweh as the Son of God. At the same time, he will give a formal public statement stating that he is giving up or he is no longer living a life as practiced by the nation of Yahweh. And furthermore, as a sacrifice of the high title or position he once held, he will formally and publicly state that he is refusing to have any further association with Yahweh ben Yahweh, his disciples, and the nation of Yahweh. These subsequent actions will give reason for the particular way in which he will be speaking out against Yahweh ben Yahweh. The facts show that the reason the chief priests and Pharisees got a court order restricting Yahweh ben Yahweh from having any contact with his disciples was so when this person formally and publicly gives his public statements renouncing his association with Yahweh ben Yahweh before the world and tells and writes detailed accounts of alleged actions which will be sensationally distorted by the media, there will be absolutely no contact between Yahweh ben Yahweh and his disciples. Why? For fear that they might come during this time of gloom, described as night, and steal him away, as written in Matthew chapter 27, verse 64. So who is this person that the chief priests and Pharisees are keeping under surveillance? This person is one who has the same nature or character as a nickname compared to glum. What is the nickname that describes the character of this sullen person? Join us next week as we continue to decode Matthew chapter 27, verse 64, as we resume our course of singling out the family of Adam from the perspective of the word watch and its relationship to keep. I bear witness to you today that the Messiah, Yahweh ben Yahweh, is here.
I bear witness to you today that the Mahdi is here.
I bear witness to you today that Shiloh is here. I bear witness to you today that the great light is here.
I bear witness to you today that the Grand Master of the Celestial Lodge, Architect of the universe, is here.
I bear witness to you today that the Enlightened One is here.
I bear witness to you today that the one all religion has been speaking of for almost 6,000 years is here.
Thank you for listening, And join us next week as we continue our discussion of the commandments of Yahweh.
Loading. One moment, please. The new Yahweh Ben Yahweh website now offers the latest in streaming technology to aid you in your study of the laws and teachings of Yahweh Ben Yahweh. Visit YahwehBenYahweh.com and learn about the Tetragrammaton, the meaning of the crucifixion, and how to keep the Sabbath. YahwehBenYahweh.com is your home for truth and insight. Read about Operation Word War and how you can work to balance justice. Shalom.
Who is worthy? Who is worthy to open the book? Who is worthy to open the book and loose the seals thereof?
And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. At the end of time of evil rule, the Anointed One, the Messiah, shall appear. In 1979, Yahweh Ben Yahweh came to Miami and became the spiritual leader and founder of the Nation of Yahweh. Although he took a vow of poverty, in 7 years he guided the nation to amass a $250 million empire. Under his direction, the Nation of Yahweh has grown to encompass disciples, followers, and supporters in over 1,300 cities within the U.S. and 16 foreign countries. Yahweh Ben Yahweh is bringing about changes in the lives of individuals and is giving the world the keys to success in life, politically, economically, educationally, socially, and spiritually.
The Greek word for ask is ahitu. This is the word that Yahweh Ben Yahweh uses when he asks for something from his Father, Yahweh. Asking in prayer means coming to Yahweh as would a beggar to a generous person. You should not demand anything from Yahweh. If we, as the children of Yahweh, will only trust him for our needs, Yahweh will give us our request. Many times, however, people ask for things that are not according to his will. We must realize that Yahweh will only give the things that are good in light of eternity. Yahweh will give only what is eternally good and according to the execution of his plan and timetable for the whole world. Yahweh has made everything beautiful in his time. He has also set the world in our hearts so that no man can find out the work that Yahweh makes from the beginning to the end. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11.
Yahweh is able to use anything and anyone for the fulfillment of his purpose. Furthermore, he knows the events that have transpired in the past, as well as those things that will be in the future. Yahweh has made all things which are by their nature good and pleasing to him, and which things will please him at the appointed time that he has established. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 verifies that to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven.
Remember that this is the morning of the third day, and I shall rise again. I am the resurrection. All of prophecy tells you that I shall rise again. It's all about that. Luke chapter 2, verse 34. No doubt about it. Again, I love you forever, bless you forever. I remind you once again, my associates are children of the light. That just brings laughter to my heart, to my soul, to realize that at last I have those of you that love peace. And I only want to be in the presence of those of you that love peace. I love you forever. Shalom Aleichem.
The word ask reveals how we must come unto Yahweh as a beggar to a generous person, in a humble manner and not demanding. We must trust Yahweh for all of our needs and believe that He will give to us those things that are good and pleasing to Him. We must always remember that it is Yahweh who has appointed time, and that to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Thank you for joining us in the universe of Yahweh. And now we'd like to invite all of you to pray with us as we turn to the east with outstretched hands and say a prayer to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer in Hebrew. Come, let us pray. Tefillah, Ave Nu Shabbat Shemayim, Yikardesh Shemeaka, Tavo Malkuteaka, Yase Razonka, Kiva Shemayim Kang Baaretz, Et Lekam Kukenu, Tain La Nu Hayom, Uslak La Nu, Al Katienu, Ki Moshe Solkim, Gamanaknu, La Koteum Lanu, Veal Tefienu, Lade Nisayom, Kim Kal Senu, Min Hara, Kilaka, Hamumlaha, Veha Givera, Veha Tiferet, Leolame, Olamin Sila. We thank Thee, O Yahweh, O living and eternal King, who has so mercifully restored our souls within us. Selah. Praise Yahweh, and always remember that the Father Yahweh and His Son Yahweh ben Yahweh love you, and your host loves you too. Shalom Aleichem.
To order the companion book to the series, The Messiah Revealed, call 1-800-967-PEACE. That's 1-800-967-7337. And when you call, ask about the special discount on the Blessed and Only Potentate. Videos of this program are available. When ordering, please refer to the program number on the screen.
You can now access the divine mind of Yahweh ben Yahweh on the internet at the address on the screen.